Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Kyle Juice Michalski, Quinten Q Krzysko, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce, bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
First things first, I want to set the stage. I want to talk about what I think should be the main takeaway today. So, 2 minutes left, fourth quarter, down by 1 to the Green Bay Packers. Caleb Williams and the Bears offense are facing 3rd and 19. This is impossible territory for a Bears quarterback, right? Like, we've seen Aaron Rodgers do this before, but he's Aaron Rodgers. Caleb avoids the sack. It's a little hard. Darnell Wright loses on the rep, allows the inside move, but he loses, but he does just enough to let Caleb break free outside, right? Like, he keeps going, keeps getting the hand on the guy. Even though he lost inside, he keeps pushing. Gets Caleb Williams the opportunity to flow out to his right and hit Rome Odunze for a 16-yard completion. So now you're facing 4th and 3. Minute and a half left. Caleb Williams finds Rome Odunze again. But we're not talking about a 3-yard completion on 4th and 3. We're not talking about a 5-yard completion on 4th and 3. They're going deep. They recognize man coverage, and Caleb says, oh, yeah. Oh, that's my sucker right there. I see Kashawn Nixon on Rome Odunze. Rome's going to get this ball. 21-yard completion gets them almost into field goal range. The Green Bay 42 with a minute left at this point. Caleb Williams hits another throw to get them in that field goal range for Keenan Allen on a 12-yard completion. I told myself today, I was not going to get too low about the Bears. The Bears were not going to affect my mood, and I made it successfully until this 2-minute mark. Until this all happened. And it was like, I'm watching Aaron Rodgers. I'm watching Aaron Rodgers out there do crazy stuff where for once, the Green Bay Packers were the team on the receiving end of impossible territory. And this guy just does it and breaks your heart. And I just wanted the Bears to rip their heart out. And Ron, what happened?
They didn't rip their heart out. Instead, we got our hearts ripped out, as a matter of fact. Q. This is, how do I put this? This is probably the one show so far this season that I am physically, usually I have like a mental state ready to go before every single show. This is the one that I don't know. I don't know where my head's going to go. I don't know where my heart's going to go because this one hurt today. This one hurt today because of everything you just said, Q. That's why it hurt. It's not even because they got the doors blown off of them. It's not even because they should have lost. It's because they were right there. They were right there. And then we get to lose again because of another stupid freak play, which feels like the story of our lives as Chicago Bears fans.
They dragged us back in. We said all week, they're not going to drag us in. And they found a way to drag us back in. But you know what? I am still walking away from this excited because I saw the Caleb that I thought we saw some of earlier this year. I thought this was the most consistent game he put together end to end. And it is just night and day from what we've seen for the last 3 weeks. But we'll get into all that. This is Bears on Tap. My name is Quinten Krzysko. I am joined by Ron Luce here, and we're excited to be here despite a tough loss that the Bears went through today. But
are we, Q? Are we though?
Are we really talk excited? Football with Mr. Ron Luce here.
Oh, always. I'm always ready to talk football with you, my friend. Let's do it. Let's get into the thing.
Let's jump into the comments first things. So Scott's in the comments saying this is the perfect example of how bad the O-line is. If the Bears don't draft any O-line and D-line, we riot. I mean, I agree. You need to draft O-line and D-line. Like you're gonna need to replace a bunch of these guys.
Arguably, I think the D line might be more important than the offensive line after today's showing. I don't know how you feel about that, Q, but after watching Jordan Love on third and what felt like forever or should have been forever, just sit back and pick apart the Bears secondary because he had all the time in the world. That to me screams maybe the defensive line is more important than the offensive line because Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright coming back this week made a massive difference on this offensive line.
It did. And so I guess I'll start with the D line here since you brought that up. I think Montez Sweat is playing at like 50% right now. I don't think that he's given you what you expect, and I can't blame him. I think his ankle is a real issue. And I think Andrew Billings is such a key to this D line, run defense and pass rush, because right now, I mean, what I could tell from the game, Javon Dexter was having to play one tech a lot of the game. So he couldn't be the attacking 3-tech that he was early in the year. Takes away a lot of his pass rush ability because he's just not that skilled at it, right? He's not skilled enough to consistently win as a 1-tech in a pass rush while playing the run lanes and respecting the run lanes the way that he needs to. Like, I mean, he struggles in the run lanes as a 3-tech sometimes. So it's asking a lot of him, and you don't have D-tackle depth. It's something we talked about going back to the start of the season. Like, this roster needs more D-tackle depth. But on the O-line, let me throw the comments in here a little more. We got Buddy Day Meehan in the comments. Hello, good sir. And then we have Scott talking about the O-line a little bit more, saying Jones is not a left tackle. I don't care what numbers you show me. I mean, that's where I was going with this. Truly, I think the O-line end-to-end put together one of their better days of the year.
Yes.
But that final drive, it has to be weighted heavier, right? Like, the first sack that Caleb took in that final drive, I think Caleb deserves a decent amount of blame on that one. I went back and watched it a few times before the show, and I think that he got a little jittery, stepped up too far, and got stuck in no man's land where it's like, okay, I got to run or I'm going to take this sack because I've gone too far. Like, I think the protection could have been better, but I also don't think Caleb needed to step up the way that he did. And the second one, Jones just got destroyed. So that one, it's hard to defend Braxton Jones looking at that rep because that's a gotta have it moment. That's a moment where you need to be at your best. I don't know, was he 50%? Was he 70%? He was playing, coming off an injury, was limited participant practice throughout this week. At the end of the day, though, that wasn't good enough on that rep, and that needs to be mentioned. I will probably die on the hill saying that Braxton Jones is a top 50 tackle in the NFL, which means he's a starter. Because when I go watch O-line tape from around the league, I see guys who have very similar issues a lot of the time, except for the elite guys and the really like the Pro Bowl, all pro caliber guys. There's only a handful of those guys who are really doing it at that level right now. But there are a lot more than that who are doing it in a gotta have it moment. So that one hurts for me. And like, I think Karan Amagaji I think he's taking Braxton's job next year, most likely.
And maybe he is, but like Braxton Jones wasn't the problem today. That's, I think, where I'm a little frustrated. And this is not intended for shots at Scott from Iowa because we appreciate Scott from Iowa. But holy shit, Braxton Jones is not the problem today. Why are we focusing on the offensive line? That was not the problem today. So Caleb had ample time to do a lot of good things today. That we can be very, very happy about. You know what I'm not happy about? Jordan Love having 7.5 seconds to throw the football. I'm more upset with the defensive line than I am with the offensive line this week because that's where this game came down to. Jordan Love had a lot of time on some crucial third downs where the Bears defense put them in the exact spot they needed to be. Mm-hmm. And they still couldn't get it done. And I'll tell you what, I agree with Mark Gallo, maybe especially at the end of the game. It's the coaching. I think there's something to be said about Eberflus this week. I think not going and trying to get a couple more yards before the kick was a humongous mistake where you could have just run it with Roshan and tried to get 4 or 5 yards and then called a timeout. It would have been the exact same fucking thing because guess what happened? The kick got partially blocked and Cairo would have smoked it if you had 3 or 4 yards of extra leverage, right? And of course, hindsight's 20/20, but that just goes to show this team is so close. And Q, I think as a Bears fan, We can, yeah, exactly. Mark felt it in my soul before I could even, I said it and Mark already said it too. I think we can all sit here and look at this game and go, the Bears did a lot of good shit today. Like, I'm not mad about the Bears. I'm just mad about how it ended. And I think that's the problem, right? Because you could argue coaching. I thought Thomas Brown did a great job today in his first game as OC. The offense looked tolerable for the first time in 4 weeks since London.
Yeah, since London.
Like the offense actually looked like they could do something today, and that was nice. It was enjoyable. Made the game interesting. Sure as hell.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, I don't know if you ever get this itch or this frustration, but I want to ask you because you're a guy who, you played O-line at the college level. You probably feel more O-line than I do with it, even though I get frustrated by this because the Bears O-line is not good. And I don't sit here and try to argue that. I try to argue that they're serviceable, that they could be a league average unit with the right scheme, the right coaching, because they have enough talent to be that when I look across the league at the talent on other offensive line units. But where I keep seeing a shortfall is the development, the expectations, and the just the general nature of what it feels like. That room lacks leadership. It lacks proven leadership who know what it takes to play in this league, what it takes to last in this league. And it seems like they're always kind of flailing. And I end up sitting here going, well, that's not a talent issue. That's an organizational issue. And when I see people constantly saying, you need to replace all these guys, we need all new offensive linemen, I can't help but sit here and think that breeds the issue. And obviously, I don't want Shelton starting next year. Tevin Jenkins is going to be gone. You need a right guard because Matt Pryor isn't a permanent solution. So, yeah, you do need at least 3 new offensive linemen. But I get frustrated whenever I hear someone say the problem with the Bears is the O-line. It feels short-sighted to me. It feels like it's like you don't know what you're blaming. So you're just saying he gets sacked a lot. It's got to be the O-line. And there's more to it than that, I feel like.
You know what the craziest part about this team is the fact that your general manager played offensive line as his position in football, and yet that feels like the most neglected position on the field. And I don't say that from necessarily a talent perspective. Yes, I think he got it wrong with Nate Davis, who was obviously released this week, and that's fine. It is what it is. Every GM gets shit wrong, folks. Look at everybody's track record. If you want to go back, even Theo Epstein for the Chicago Cubs got things wrong, right? But when you go back and you look at it and you think about it, Ryan Poles made a good pick with Darnell Bright. I will die on that hill. I think he made a great pick for what Braxton Jones is as a 5th rounder, folks. Found value in a tough spot in the draft. That's cool and tough. Moving Tevin Jenkins to guard was the right move. But it still feels like there was a little bit of oversight on Ryan Poles' part that was missed with the offensive line. And I think exactly what you said is probably the biggest piece they're missing. There is no leader in that room. It's a lot of guys who are either young or journeymen. It's one of the two.
Can't be a 23-year-old second-year player. Can't be a 24-year-old third-year, 5th-round pick. And it sure as hell can't be Ryan Bates.
Right. And that's where I think I almost wish that he gave the offensive line room the same treatment he did the tight end room with a guy like Mercedes Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring in some old vet to be a backup offensive lineman who can at least guide these guys and has some kind of resume behind him in his experience when he speaks to these guys. I think that goes a long way. It really does. Leadership in every room goes a long way. I think it's gone a long way in the quarterback room, despite, obviously Caleb is probably the most successful guy in that room, and that's neither here nor there, but at least you had a guy like Ripien in that room during the preseason, right? Mm-hmm. That's a huge spot to get. Running back, Swift, he's a veteran. Wide receiver, Keenan Allen. Tight end, Mercedes Lewis. On the defense, you have guys like that, Montez Sweat, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard, especially in that secondary. You have it at every single position on the team except offensive line. And it's frustrating because I do think Ryan Poles has done a lot of good things. I'm not going to sit here and be like Ryan Poles deserves to be fired because I think that's absolutely ludicrous. And anybody that says that needs to check themselves as a football fan. But I do agree that he has neglected probably some positions more than others. And unfortunately, the offensive line feels that way, where, again, you would hope that things go right. But even then, they still had an okay day. But this is where my brain goes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if there's one thing we did at St. Xavier University in my college days, I don't give a damn that it's the NAIA level. I don't give a damn that it might be not the highest level of college football. I don't care what anybody says on this podcast or in the comments or whatever. We practice special teams, and we practice it the right way. Because you know what happens when you practice it the right way? You don't get blocked up the fucking middle on a kick. That's the one place you need to protect. The guy comes off the edge and gets it, good on him. That's an outer worldly play if he gets there. Not up the middle. And that, again, you had him on the ropes. Caleb Williams did everything we would have hoped for on the last drive of the game. I was invested. I was ready. I had texts teed up to people that were Packers fans ready to rub it in because they did everything up until the last 3 seconds of the game that mattered. And then when it mattered the most, they protected the least in the most crucial situation. Up the middle on special teams. That's where you get blocked. It's not from the outside. Ain't nobody that quick. I can promise you.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of guys block kicks from the outside. I've seen it maybe 3 times in my entire life. Any given level. You know where all the blocks come from? Just as Scott says right here. Up the middle. And that's the most frustrating part of today's game. They did a lot of good things. The defense was still shorthanded because of Billings being out for the season, things like that. But you had them right where you wanted them. But they stopped caring when it mattered most. And it's tragic. It really is, Q.
Now, one thing I want to mention with that, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was my next, I was going to Scott's comment with that. And I wanted to talk about it because we can't sit here and say, give all this talk about offensive line and how we think he gets overburdened with the blame at times without talking about how it was ultimately the issue at the end of the game of that kick getting blocked. It does need to be addressed that's a problem. And that's, maybe if you had a veteran in the room, it might be addressed a little better. But the one question I have about that, Green Bay had 2 guys leaping over the center, essentially. Or not the center, the long snapper. 2 guys landing on his back. That's not legal. And this has been something that you can go back. It was like week 3, I think, the Seahawks and the Giants game. The Giants block a game-winning kick. Similar thing happens. Guy all over the long snapper, holds him down to make sure the leaper can get over without touching him. Leaper gets over, blocks it. Obviously, the Bears didn't have a leaper against them, but I don't know why the NFL is not calling this year. I've seen 2 or 3 other instances of it where you're pretty much allowed to attack the long snapper in end of game situations right now, which is not the rule. So
No.
I don't know why a team wouldn't do it if they feel like they're not going to get called for it. Because even if they get called for it, they're going to be like, well, we had to try something, not
Sure.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying type thing. But what are your thoughts on that, Ron, with the long snapper there? Like, is that just making excuses for something, or do you think there's something real there about it?
That's the right rule. You are not. They made this such a big deal, and we've seen games decided by it, where the offense isn't, or the defense is not allowed to touch the long snapper. It's been that for a long time, and they abused the long snapper on that play. This is another reason, and this is a bigger issue, and I will happily quickly address it because I think it needs to be said worldwide and nationwide and NFL-wide. The NFL officials need to be full-time, where you can train them and you can properly educate them and they actually get the shit right. Not guys that work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and then get on an airplane on Friday night or Saturday night and fly wherever they're going to referee a game. Like, these guys are making like $300 a game and probably do something similar to most human beings during the work week. That's not how it should be. You're a multi-billion-dollar league. The fact that your officials get paid probably hundreds of dollars a game is tragic, and it damages your product. There's probably other teams that feel this exact same way this season about the long snapper being abused where that was such a big rule change when it happened that you couldn't touch the long snapper. They don't care. Nobody gets anything right. The officials weren't great this game. They gave a couple calls to the Bears that I'm not going to sit here and bitch and bullshit. That was great. That we'll take it. They gave some things to the Packers too. You got to get it right, especially when there's this much money on the line for these teams. Like there's billions of dollars on the line, hundreds of millions at minimum. It's tragic that they got the call wrong, but nonetheless, if you block it correctly, it doesn't even fucking matter. And it's hard, right? Like it's easy to be like, well, you know, they got it wrong. They got it, you know, this, that, and the other. They still got it wrong. And I know Mark's sitting here. The average NFL referee makes between $205,000 and $250,000. That's great. But guess what? That's not their full-time job. Believe it or not, it's not. They're not 100% full-time employees.
Actually.
Yes.
With the whole codification of the rules versus codification of the law, there's a lot of crossover there.
They are all 1099 non-employee compensation employees. Every single one of them. You want to fix the officiating issue? Give them benefits. Just like everything else in life. Give them benefits. Yeah, that dollar value is cool. I would do a lot of things to make that kind of money in a year. But that doesn't excuse the fact that this is not their full-time
I'd
focus.
move wherever you want me to move in the country to be an NFL referee at that money.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like, I mean, that's that.
Especially if you get
it's
benefits.
Not like it's a lack of workforce availability.
Yeah, no problem. Full-time job, send me wherever you want. I don't care.
Yeah. And so we have a former Bears on Tap co-host in the comments, and Brandon Suarez saying 6 out of 10 games, no touchdowns for Caleb. I mean, truly, I'd sit here and say, that dude was throwing bullets around the field, man. I'm not too worried about the touchdown line. Like he was firing today.
He roots for Notre Dame. His opinion is nulled right now because he's a USC hater. That's neither here nor there. I love you, B-Don. I appreciate you, buddy. But no Caleb hate today. I have nothing to bitch about when it comes to Caleb Williams.
No.
Nothing.
I mean, no turnovers. He was firing. He was attacking today. Like I don't know if we'd seen him truly on attack once this year before today, but today he was trying to hit windows that we hadn't seen him try all year. He was flying the ball in there, giving contested opportunities to his playmakers, which again was something that we had not seen to this point. You have no idea how excited I got over a incompletion to Keenan Allen, because I was sitting here going, he hasn't thrown that ball at all this season. He threw it like that. It felt like Eberflus was out of his head a little bit. Now, and people might say Shane Waldron being gone was it. I think Eberflus hit the brakes a little on his protect the football stuff because he knows that there's a lot of heat coming at him for it right now. So I think that he let off the brakes and said, just go attack. And he attacked, and it was fun.
And you know what I think I also enjoyed about Caleb today is the offense had no problem scheming him to take easy runs to set up easier second and whatevers, right? When it's 1st and 10, if they're going to give you 6 free yards, take it. Go take it. And that's what they did. They schemed up Caleb on designed runs a couple times just to take easy runs, because guess what? If you get 8 yards on 1st down and it's 2nd and 2 and you have a Roschon Johnson in your arsenal, you can take a shot on 2nd and 2. That's fun when you can take a shot on 2nd and short. And you see it around the league. The Lions do it a ton. You get a big run on 1st down, take a shot on 2nd down. Because guess what? You're probably going to pick it up on 3rd down if you call the right play. We see it time and time again. And I think that's where, I was excited about Caleb running the football and designed runs today. It set up a lot of things. He was efficient. I'm not mad about Caleb Williams. I'm mad about the fact that shit didn't go the right way because the Bears are the Bears and they're going to bear until they don't bear anymore, if that makes any sense at all to anybody listening. But they just, and I want them to get something right. And the problem is, just as Mark says here, Eberflus will probably be gone. So what if the offense keeps improving? Like it's this endless, vicious, horrendous cycle. And it's the most infuriating thing about the Bears, because this was a game where I literally wrote it in this week's How to Watch. I'm actually going to even pull it up because I literally verbatim said it. when it was all said and done. I read to you. Let's read it. The oldest rivalry in the NFL is on display for the country to see. In the single Fox slot, the Bears and Packers have the largest viewing audience teed up. Ideally, a competitive game is welcomed, which it was, but a Bears win would heal a lot of open wounds amongst the organization and the fan base on Sunday. And it sure as hell would have done that. We all would have forgot about Eberflus for a week. We'd have all been excited about Thomas Brown for a week. I'm still excited about Thomas Brown, but I think there would have been even more excitement had they won. And I think Caleb would have been the same way. I think everything about the Chicago Bears would have been the same exact way. But a single block kick has changed and soured the entire mood of this fan base because they played a good football game against in my opinion, a far superior team and a far better coach team. They're there. But the Bears are going to bear until they don't bear anymore. And that's what happened today. And that's what makes it the most frustrating thing about today's game.
So this game reminded me a little bit of, actually, if I'm thinking it through, of Aaron Rodgers' first game against the Bears, where like the Bears won that game pretty handedly. Like it wasn't this as close as this game was, but I think it was his first game against the Bears. But either way, I just remember thinking like going into the game, my entire thought process was, well, he's not Brett Favre, you know? But then the Bears won the game, but I came away from that game going, oh, that guy looked pretty good. That guy might be a bit of a problem. You know, I shoved it down deep and didn't tell anyone about that. But like deep in my brain, I was like, that's not good. That's not good. He might be something. So I'm hoping that's the way Packers fans are seeing this today of like, we got away with one, but that kid's going to be trouble. That kid is going to be real trouble in the NFC North. Now, one thing on Mark's comment there a little bit that I think could be an option if this offensive progress continues, which it's easy to crown Thomas Brown for one game. We need probably at least 4 or 5 games to really understand if there's more there or not, because
Minimum.
we need to see defenses adjust to him adjust back. We need to see the whole chess match kind of take place. So give it a little air, let it breathe. We love what we saw. We need to see more of it. We need to see how it all evolves into something. But if it does, Ron, would you be surprised if Thomas Brown is the Bears head coach next year?
I might throw up if Thomas Brown is the Bears head coach next year. And it's not even a shot at Thomas Brown. I think it's just, but again, we're going back to exactly what Mark said in the comments of it's the same shit show over and over and over again with the Bears where, you know, it's a new head coach in a second year with a team. I don't think Thomas Brown gets the head coaching job. I don't even think he gets the OC job. I hope he gets an OC job somewhere else. But this is the problem, right? Is not only do we sit here and go, wow, this Bears team is 4-6, but they're also with no sense of direction right now. And that's what makes it even more infuriating, I think, losing to the Packers. Let's be real. We all know what it feels like to lose to the Packers at this point. The Packers have owned the Bears for the better part of the last 28 games. They're what, 26 and 3 in the last 29, I think, or some nonsense like that. It's a nauseating number. You'd like to see them come away with it. And Mark says here, Thomas Brown's running the Shanahan-McVay offense, which is great. I think that's what everybody wanted to see. He says he studied it a lot. He's running it. It's condensed formations with motion because motion identifies coverages, different personnel groupings. It's a great thing, and it's very quarterback friendly. I agree. And I hope that means that maybe, just maybe, Ryan Poles sees that and goes, you know what? No matter what happens next year, that's where we want to lean. We want something that's going to be a quarterback-friendly system because we see what Caleb brings and what he can do in the offense when he is given the right tools and the right play calls and things like that. Again, football is the greatest team sport out there. I know everybody loves to bitch and identify individuals that do things wrong, but guess what? You got 11 people on the field that need to execute. You got a coach that needs to execute. You got a couple of coaches that need to execute. It's a big operation, folks. And exactly like Mark said in the comments, that's what you want to see. And you know what? honestly, at this point, I think I'd be okay with Thomas Brown being the head coach if he's calling the offense, because guess what? At least it's continuity for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the continuity that I necessarily want, but it's continuity that he probably won't get otherwise, just given the nature of this vicious cycle that we've seen over and over and over again. Did you see the Kevin Fishbane clip? With the Athletic on the podcast that he was on?
No, I did not.
Oh boy, he articulated it beautifully. He said George McCaskey takes over the team, hires Phil Emery. Phil Emery inherits Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler gets a coach fired. They hire a new coach in year 2. The nonsense goes through a whole cycle. They hire a new coach. He gets Jay Cutler because of the contract. Things don't go right. Jay Cutler's gone. In year whatever lame duck year of John Fox, they draft Trubisky, and then that thing goes the way it does. And then they get Nagy, and he's not his guy. And then they go through that nonsense in motion. Then they have to go get Nick Foles, and then it's the same. It's literally history repeating itself to the point where I want to cry sometimes. Q, I really do, because I go, wow, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. And this game just makes it worse because they had a chance. I could have forgotten about everything for at least 3 weeks. At least. George McCaskey, I would have seen him and I would have been like, high five, Pip. Good job. Great. Thank you so much for beating the Packers, because I can talk a lot of shit to a lot of people I know. Nope, can't even do that this week, even though you had him right there. Right there. Yeah. It's frustrating, man. I'm going to have so many different thoughts when we talk for the preview show inevitably this week. But right now, I'm just so flabbergasted, just speechless, lost, because I don't know how to feel about this game. There's so many good things that happened from this game, but they still lost the fucking game. And that's what's so infuriating.
See, you know what really stood out to me as I was looking through the box score of this, when I looked at Bears offensive drives, 34 yards, 51 yards, 76 yards, 61 yards, 78 yards, 44 yards, and 42 yards. It's been a while since I've seen a game like that for the Bears, where every drive is at least 30 plus yards and they don't have any negative yardage drives. They don't have any 3 and outs, not a single 3 and out. That is inspiring to me. But when I look at the defensive side, I'm a little less inspired, and not necessarily by the per drive, because they did have some drives where they got a full stop, but mainly by Jordan Love's stat line. 13 of 17, 261 yards at 15.4 yards per attempt. That's just unacceptable, even for a bend but don't break defense. Like that means you broke multiple times, as we saw. They did break multiple times. They were able to hold them to field goals, or not even field goal. I think what was it? They got the turnover on downs on that one, where they got like the 60-yard bomb given up on them. But it's hard to win when you're doing that. This is, what was it? So Fishbane also, this turned into a Kevin Fishbane fan fest, but Kevin Fishbane had a tweet that went out that since 1940, the Bears are 101, 24, and 2 when they've had 0 turnovers on offense and created at least 1 takeaway on defense. 3 of those 24 losses have come in the last 3 weeks.
Oh, that's nauseating.
Yeah, that's insanity. That's unbelievable. 3 of the 24 out of 128 games that you lost have come in 3 consecutive weeks. Matt Eberflus's numbers as a head coach just keep flabbergasting me.
Yeah, and I think that's where the issue is. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of good comments in the comment section here, boys. Bear down, guys. Hey, bear down to you too, friend. Nothing changes until the Bears value the O-line, D-line. I don't disagree. Darren follows it up. Shore the O-line up with running a McVay offense. The O-line's asked to do a lot, and Mark nails it.
O-line's asked to do a lot in the McVay offense. They're starting 2 backup offensive tackles and a 6th-round rookie at center right now.
Sure are.
That's what I mean when I'm saying the Bears O-line. Like I look at the McVay team and I'm like, Well, those guys aren't as good as the Bears guys.
But they're making it work.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that is obviously because it's a change in scheme, right? As Mark says here, he didn't realize that Waldron was more of a Belichick offense guy. We've talked about that here on Bears on Tap. The Perkins system started with Parcells. They brought in two OCs who are not all in with what Shanahan's offense was doing.
Right, because
Brown is
Getsy was a fake McVay guy as well, or a fake Shanahan offense. Like he was
fake LaFleur guy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's an indictment on Eberflus and Poles for continuing to do that. And they were yes, man, no proof of that, according to Mark. But I don't disagree. I like what Brown did today. I'm excited to see what Brown does for the rest of the season. I really am optimistic with just where the Bears offense is trending. I'm just heartbroken at the fact that, of course, this is how a Packers game ends. Like I know we're sitting here and we're probably the most positive Bears show that's out there right now of like, yeah, Caleb looked good. And like, yeah, there was things to be excited about. It's okay.
Me, my wife had to walk me off a cliff after the game. Like,
holy shit,
it was rough.
You should have seen the sorrow I had. I was in the middle of a living room floor looking like a child who just got his favorite toy broken. It was bad. It was bad. And I still feel that way. And I hope they figure it the fuck out for the rest of the season. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No. I think we're beyond that at this point. But at least if things are starting to look up, maybe there's hope for the future. If nothing else, just let Caleb develop. That's what needs to happen here. And I want them to keep winning ball games. If they draft 14th next year, I'll take it. I don't give a shit. I'm tired of the top 10 picks. Somebody told me that today when they lost. They're like, what? Think about draft position. I said, fuck draft position. We're past that at this point. Ryan Poles is entering his 4th year as general manager coming up here. Just go win games. Get the best talent you humanly can and go win games. They were right there today. They did everything we could have asked of them, Q. And it was one play. It's always one fucking play. Always one fucking play, especially on special teams, which makes me even more mad because I feel like I'm the only person in the world that preaches special teams on a microphone. And you saw it happen today.
Yep.
And it sucks, man. It sucks.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to spend an offseason analyzing what the Bears should do with the top 10 pick. But we've talked a lot in the last 3 weeks about the stench of losing and how hard it is to wash off. I think Eberflus is done even if he wins games. So to me, win games. Like, get rid of that stench. Get it out of here. You got to win games. You can't have players breaking their spirit, putting everything out there and losing like this constantly. It's a tough schedule. It's going to be tough to win a few. But to me, you got to go win some games because you can't go into next year with the loser mentality again. It's just, it's too hard to get rid of. The winning culture is not something that builds overnight. And I mean, they were a 17 win team last year, and it's reverted back now. Like, you need to be able to be on the rise with that culture. Now, Ron, let's get into one of our segments here. So I'm thinking we go this route first.
The baddest man.
Mr. Luce, who is your baddest man on the Bears offense today?
You know who my baddest man on the offense was? I actually thought about this, Q. So fun fact, I was taking in the game with a few of my good friends. My lovely fiance was at work, so I couldn't enjoy the football game with her. And I thought about it on my walk home because thankfully my friends don't live very far down the street from me. I was like, Q's going to ask me who the baddest man is in this game, and I actually have to make an answer. And I thought about it. The baddest man was not on the field this week, Q. Thomas Brown is my baddest man. Because I'll tell you what, to turn around and make this offense, which a week ago, which I was in person for a week ago, and I felt sick walking away from that football game. To make that offense look and feel real and important and progressive for a large variety of reasons, you got to be a bad dude. You got to have something in your head that makes you tick and it makes it work. So for that reason, Thomas Brown gets my not as baddest man. And also bring that energy every single time when the Bears score. Did you see that clip?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Oh,
More of that. I bet you Shane Waldron doesn't do that. Shane Waldron was laughing when they punted the football away. Thomas Brown getting fired
Like a
up when they
Cheshire
score a
cat.
touchdown. That makes me a happy human being. That's my baddest man right there. Thomas Brown. He made this offense. He turned this offense around from the bye week to look like something that we hadn't seen since pre-bye week. And that alone makes you kind of a bad dude to figure that out.
I mean, we sit here and think about Monday, stuff was undecided. Tuesday, they fire Waldron and Brown finds out he's taking over. You probably get nothing done that day between the press conferences and everything, personal stuff off field, calling your wife, telling her, there's all sorts of stuff that probably eats in your time that day. So you're probably not actually getting to anything until late night Tuesday into early hours of the wee hours of the morning Wednesday. You had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What, maybe you might do a walkthrough Saturday, maybe.
That's about it at that point.
You had, in reality, 3 days to find your game plan and implement it. Really, 2 days. We're talking about teaching it to the players and everything. 2 days. I don't think he slept this week. I don't see how he could have slept this week.
Did you see that reaction? That was raw adrenaline. He's probably running on adrenaline since Tuesday night.
Yeah, adrenaline and Red Bull. He was just cranking them, I'm sure. So I think that's a great answer. For my baddest man on offense, I haven't done this much so far this year because I wanted to save it for moments where it really mattered. It's Caleb. That young man was firing missiles out. That ball had some disgusting zip on it at times. He was just there were a few throws early that had me worried, really early first drive of the game where it was miss. It was what the hell, man? Is this going to be all game? And then it was at some point after half, I think it was the dude didn't miss. Just bullet after bullet after bullet, dime balls, layering in between defenders. Caleb had an incredible game today with his legs too. They finally got, as you mentioned, they got the RPO game going. This guy was one of the best RPO quarterbacks in the country at USC. Right? RPO was a giant part of what they did. So it was awesome to see, to Thomas Brown's credit, them implement that in and use that to create more of a run threat that kept the pass rush honest. You'll notice early in the game, the pass rush was kind of teeing off. Once the RPOs started hitting, they couldn't afford to do that anymore. The run game will keep the pass rushers honest, keep them having to worry about their run lanes all the time. How often is it that we see a Packers defensive end running free off a play action boot and just smashing the quarterback? Since Matt LaFleur got there, it happens at least 2-3 times a game. Happened once this game, but once they got that RPO game going, it didn't. The defenders had to worry about the run lanes. So great job by Caleb in conjunction with Thomas Brown. Let's move on.
The nicest man.
I just realized we forgot to do defense, but we'll jump to nicest man first. Ron, who was your nicest man on offense in a good offensive showing?
For what it's worth, I don't have a baddest man on defense. I'll just get that out there right now. Nicest man on offense. Ooh. This one's tough. This one's really tough. I think for man, I really don't have anybody. I really don't. I'm not upset about the offensive performance today. DJ Moore looked good. He was getting in there on screens and making plays after the catch because that's what he does best. Rome Odunze was making things happen. Keenan Allen looked good today. Cole Kmet got involved. DeAndre Swift had the big touchdown. So did Roshan. It felt like everybody kind of did their job today. Even the offensive line. I know it might be easy to be well, the offensive line did things improperly because, we're Meatball Bears fans and that's how we yell about is the Bears offensive line. But I don't have a lot to yell and bitch about today. I really don't. I don't have a nicest man. This Bears offense was bad today, and I liked what I saw, and it just whoever, who my nicest man is? Whoever the hell was the left guard protection on the fucking field goal. That guy. He's my nicest man. because
don't
you
know who it
just
was. I
stopped.
saw a still shot of Larry Borum on the ground. So I have to assume he had something.
Perfect. Then that guy, that's my nicest man for that reason alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair one. I think I'm going to go Braxton. I think he played a good game. And this isn't trying to pick on him. He's playing hurt. Came back probably before he should have. But you can't let Rashawn Gary just bully you into the backfield on 2nd and 12 in a gotta-have-it situation. So to me, that has to go there. But on defense, Ron, who's your nicest man?
this one feels like an easy one for me. The pass rush. Everybody in the pass rush. Jordan Love stood back there and diced apart this Bears defense on 3rd down because nobody could get home. Nobody. And they even tried to get creative. They brought blitzes. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter. And I think it just goes to show, right? We talked about it in the offseason. I think that was every Bears fan's concern was there's nobody established, not, taking shots at what Austin Booker could be in the future. Not saying DeMarcus Walker's not a good football player, but there is no active threatening presence on the outside opposite of Montez Sweat. And for that reason alone, you saw it today. The Packers protecting exactly as they needed to against his pass rush, gave Jordan Love all the time in the world, and it kept a lot of Packers drives together that shouldn't have been kept together because they were able to convert on big 3rd downs. And to me, they're the nicest guys. They told Jordan Love, here you go, brother. Go in your contract. Go. Be free. Because they just let him do it.
Yep.
And it was tragic.
For me, I'm going Elijah Hicks. I'm not trying to bash a backup or anything, but I wish they had some better depth behind Brisker because you knew Brisker was going to get hurt at some point this year. And, there's a lot to be concerned about with his concussions and like what, he's going to be missing 8-9 games by the time it's all said and done with a concussion. That's scary stuff. But you needed a better backup. I thought Jonathan Owens was going to be that guy. Apparently not. It's been Hicks. Like, I don't think Jonathan Owens is all that good of a football player in the realm of the NFL. But like, I don't know. I can't even really sit here and say he's better than Elijah Hicks because I haven't seen enough of him play out there. But Hicks, I felt like they were picking on him throughout a lot of the game. Jordan Love's job was to find Hicks and throw in that area because it didn't feel like they respected him to me. And, there was plenty of other, like Tyreek Stevenson had a rough day. Jalen Johnson had his feet get tangled up and Christian Watts was able to get that long catch from it. The D line, to your point, there was no pass rush. They couldn't stop the run for their lives. I imagine the linebackers had something to do with Josh Jacobs rolling off 60 yards receiving. So there's a lot to choose from the defense, but ultimately I have to go with Hicks because I think that was probably the weakest point of the defense today. Now, to circle it back to baddest man on the defense, and it's slim pickings, like you said. So, and I know you don't have one, but I need to give a little bit of credit to DeMarcus Walker. He's one of the only guys who I thought brought any juice today. He had a tackle for loss. He had a sack in the red zone there. Technically a sack. He pushed him out of bounds, like at or a little behind the line of scrimmage, but he brought the juice. DeMarcus Walker's always going to bring the juice. That's what he does. And he deserves credit for that. So he's my baddest man on defense. Now,
they like guys that bring the juice.
Absolutely. Now, let's get to our final segment here before we wrap this up.
Keys to victory.
We got to review our keys to victory. It's the only way for us to get better at them each and every week. So, on our pregame show, every week, we choose 3 things that we think the Bears need to do effectively to win this football game. This week, our first one was that the Bears' new offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown, must break tendencies. This one could be interpreted a lot of different ways. One of the things that we pointed out in the article, which you can find over at ontapsportsnet.com every single Thursday, was the formations, right? Like if Nate Tice is sitting here pointing out your formation widths and what that tells, the NFL probably has a whole textbook about it by now. So as was mentioned in the comments earlier, formation whips were a lot more condensed consistently across the playbook, across the play concepts. I thought this was something that Thomas Brown achieved today. What did you think, Ron?
Yeah, I think he, again, I love the use of the motion throughout the day because there's a reason the McVay offense works. Every defense has to respect motion, no matter what it is. Yeah, you can try to scheme it, but you can take advantage of it as an offense coordinator if teams try to scheme you up through the motion. Usually motion tells your young QB, especially your young quarterbacks, what is the coverage? Is it man? Is it zone? And then from there, you can make your reads of, is it cover 2, cover 3, what have you. They did that today. And you know what I really enjoyed, Q? Despite them not necessarily using him a ton in the role, I loved Rome Odunze lining up as like an H-back in the backfield with 2 backs next to Caleb Williams, because you can do so much out of that with the formations and the routes. And I think it was a creative way to get one of your playmakers involved in a way that nobody on film has seen yet. So naturally, that's an advantage that you have against a team like the Packers today. I think, for that reason, I like what Thomas Brown did in terms of the formation. So I think they nailed that in terms of a key to victory.
And from that standpoint, I almost like it more that they showed it, but didn't do anything with it, because it says you're an unknown play caller, essentially. I might get cute. I might get cute with it.
You just wait.
But then
it's exactly what it
does. Cute with it, and I hope he doesn't move on to get too cute with it. Or if he gets cute with it, just that it works. As long as it works, I won't be sitting here saying that's too cute. Like, I'll be saying that worked.
And you know what? You know what type of plays out of that could be quote unquote cute, but they work. If everybody bails immediately from the line of scrimmage, just a quick out. Mm-hmm. You see running backs run it all the time out of the backfield, right? Just a little flat route out of the backfield. Let Rome Odunze run that. Get your playmakers in space. That's what that type of thing does. Mm-hmm. And again, you force every D coordinator have to think about that. And the more they have to think about, the more opportunities you have to take advantage of their mistakes, because they have more that they have to consider in your game plan. Well done, Thomas Brown. Well done.
Now, the next one, it's a bit longer one, but it was be dedicated to the ground game on both sides of the ball. So this was on offense, sticking with the ground game, finding things that work, finding new ways to attack the Packers D line, who could be got on the ground. They were 25th in rush yards after contact per carry. So that meant let's see some more Roschon Johnson. 19th in rush success rate. That means they have some big busts. DeAndre Swift is really good at finding those home run plays. Ron, you think they accomplished this one today on offense?
I do and I don't, because you look at the run game, they had 179 yards of total rushing offense. 70 of that came from Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. So I like that they got creative in the run game, because like we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, they did a lot of designed run with Caleb, and that forced the Packers to respect that element of the play call. DeAndre Swift had 71 yards. I think that was great. Obviously, he had the touchdown in terms of rushing as well. Roschon had a rushing touchdown as well. 179 yards is a good day. I think they maybe could have done a little bit more in terms of your tailback usage in the run game, but neither here nor there. Sometimes you got to get creative. I would give a competent, this is better than a passing grade from Thomas Brown, because he was able to get creative in the run game, and therefore it made the run game effective. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a 1 followed up by anything higher than a 0 or a 1 in the run game as a total team. 179 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns is really cool and tough from the Bears running game today.
Now, on the other side of the ball, because we mentioned both in this one, and the Packers came into this game ranked 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards, 4th in rush yards per carry, 3rd in rush yards over expected per carry, 3rd in yards after contact per attempt. Like, they were kind of a powerhouse of a rush offense. And the Bears did hold them to 106 yards on 25 carries. Now, I don't know. The numbers tell me that they achieved this one, but the eye test does not, because it did not feel like they could stop a nosebleed when the Packers ran the ball. I think games played to the Bears' favor to keep the Packers from just pounding the rock all day.
Agreed. And the Packers still had over 100 total yards of team rushing. So they were still effective. Again, we talked about it. I think largely the Bears defense did an okay job against the run, but every time that they actually got a big play against the run, it got nullified on third and whatever when they couldn't rush the quarterback and Jordan Love made a big conversion for a first down. And then that in turn opened the run game, right? We saw it on the first drive. They gashed the Bears in the run game on that first drive. And then things kind of started to settle back. And they had only one other major drive where it felt like they really gashed the Bears in the run game. It just every time that the Bears made a big play and a big stop and forced a third down, Jordan Love had all the time in the world in order to make a throw. So I agree with you. From an eye test perspective, I don't think they necessarily accomplished it, but I mean, 106 yards on 25 attempts in the running attack. It's not awful. It's not great.
Yeah.
But it definitely could have been worse given how it felt at times, as you mentioned, because of that eye test.
Yeah, I think it's really in the gotta have it moments for the Packers offense, like to first drive of the game, go up 7-0. That's the start to any game plan, right? The goal is always to get that first 7 and then build from there. And they were able to do that just fine. Then when the Bears went into half lead or extended their lead right after half because the Bears got the ball after half. Felt like the Packers on that first drive of the second half got whatever they wanted on the ground. Like they were just, they couldn't be stopped. Like they could be limited, but they couldn't be stopped as far as like everything was over 5 yards. It was just like churning. So to me, I look at like the numbers are fine, but ultimately I want more from the run defense on this one. So I mean, I give overall this one like maybe like a C- on that key to the game because they did it okay offensively and defensively combined. I'm thinking the offense probably like a C+ and the defense like a D+. So C- just kind of makes sense in my head there. But final key of the game that we had was find ways to confuse Jordan Love. And this did tie into stopping the run quite a bit because only 65% of Jordan Love's dropbacks before today came outside play action. Only accounted for 53% of his touchdowns, but 90% of his interceptions and 100% of his sacks taken. You wanted this guy in a straight dropback offense. That's how you want to attack Jordan Love. You take away the run, and then you confuse him in dropback offense. And Ron, do you have any thoughts on how this went for the Bears today?
I mean, I thought at times they did okay. You got a big interception off of him today, and you won the turnover battle. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was those times when he had time to throw, and often that felt like it was out of that play action. I mean, he didn't throw a lot today. He only had 17 attempts in the passing game, but he was efficient. He was efficient, and that's what makes it worse. 13 for 17 with 261 yards. And it's because a lot of those third downs, he was able to gash the Bears defense for 17, 18
right, but
yards.
Those are the drop back situations, though, right? Those
Right.
are the situations where you had to be able to confuse them.
And not only couldn't they, I think they could confuse them, but they didn't have the pass rush to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that the confusion wore off, he had open men because they knew where to go and where to get to in the coverage in order to give him an opportunity because he had all day to throw it multiple times of the game. And for that reason, I think that's why it didn't work. I think they did an okay job. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think Jordan Love is the reason the Bears won this game, or the Packers won this game today. But at the same time, it's like, well, but he had a lot of those big throws on third down to keep drives alive. And ultimately, it's what feels like the difference in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't even know if I could give this one a letter grade. It kind of feels incomplete because the lack of a pass rush really kind of killed the hope of it. I do think
Agreed.
It gets a bit of a demerit that the one interception was on what I don't think was confusion as much as just a spray. I think he just missed bad. So that one I'm not sure how much they actually confused him as much as it almost feels like in some of the coverage busts, they might have confused themselves a little bit. Or maybe they got, I don't know, maybe not confused themselves, but stuff just kind of went wrong. Like with Jalen Johnson getting his feet tripped up. So like kind of an incomplete grade on that. Like you said, I think they might have done okay stuff there. But it was just,
everything always goes wrong when it's against the Packers.
yeah, why'd the Bears lose today? Because of course they did. Like it's as simple as that right now with the Green Bay Packers. But I have to say, I am much more hopeful for their game at Lambeau Field now than I ever imagined I would have been.
I completely agree. And quality co-host of ours, an incredible person, said it way back early in the show, joining us quickly, Mr. Sonny Verma. Somehow, despite there being a loss against the rival, he is less upset than the previous 3 losses. And I think that is the feeling that a lot of Bears fans walk away from. If I look at the total package of what today's game was, this is how I feel, what Sonny just described. I like what Caleb did. I think the defense still did a lot of good things. I think the defense is incomplete in terms of building what they need to be a true contender in the NFL. And I think a lot of us understood that coming out of the off season, given the personnel on the roster. But it's the fact that you had a chance to win and the fucking kick got blocked. And we haven't even talked about the fact that it doinked off the crossbar. I think we've just mentally blocked that out of our minds. I have, at least. You were right there. You had an opportunity. You did a lot of good shit. I agree. I am less upset about this than most Bears-Packers losses, but you were right there, and it was one play at the end on special teams that determined it, and I think that's why I'm not as upset, but I'm salty as hell about how it ended.
Yeah, I was really, really starting to feel good towards the end there of like, Caleb's starting his career against the Packers with a win. Like that was going to feel really nice, and it got stolen away in the last second. But I do still feel optimistic about it as, I mean, beating the Packers in 2018 when Mitch did it, right? He'd already lost to them twice, right? The first loss that he had to them felt ridiculous. Like it felt like the Bears were going to win that game. Like it was that home game at Soldier Field. I want to say it was December. It was the first time the Bears were favored.
Oh yeah,
in a long time in a game. Like it was or maybe it was their largest number being favored. I remember there being a big deal about it.
Don't forget the Khalil Mack touchdown at Lambeau to open the season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm at this point. I'm talking 2017. So like Mitch's rookie year when they who was it? Brett Hundley. When Brett Hundley came into Soldier Field and won. That's when I'm thinking of like that was his first game against the Packers. This is a different, like this is Justin Fields' first game against the Packers. The Bears felt like they were going to win that game for a good portion of it. And then it all kind of went down the shitter at some point. There were some weird throws some throws to Allen Robinson where like the route got cut off and it ended up getting intercepted. And it never felt as within reach of this though. Like it felt like the Bears had a chance in that game, but the whole time it felt like something was going to go wrong. Today, like it felt like something was going to go wrong, but it felt more like I was fighting the idea that something would go wrong, fighting that off as opposed to fighting off the feeling of like, or today I've messed that up. Today I was fighting off the feeling that something could go right. Whereas those games I was fighting off the feeling that something would go wrong. And I don't know, dare I say I'm optimistic about the future of Bears Packers. Like it's impossible to really feel optimistic about it, but I don't know that it's going to be competitive. I think for the future with Caleb here, because that's how today felt.
Competitive is a good thing because this rivalry has not felt competitive for a very long time. If it's competitive in the Caleb Williams era, bare minimum, that makes you happy. But today just shows he's got the moxie. He put together 2 really good end of game drives. It's all over social media. He's got 2 of those this season, and they're 0-2 in those games, and it has nothing to do with him. You got to hope that the flip of the coin, right, in terms of how some of those situations go over the course of professional football, maybe, just maybe in the future, finally favors the Bears, Q, because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of things here today that can make us encouraged about what it looks like in the future. But until it goes that way, right? We're all going to have that little moment where we're sitting there and we're talking about it. And then the twitch kicks in, and we feel the flashbacks and the PTSD of what Bears Packers has been for the last 10 years, because it's been dominated by that team that wears those disgusting colors up in Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm choosing to take away from this game, 4th and 3, man coverage, ball out in 1.5 seconds after the snap, because he's that decisive about where I'm going with it, and he puts it exactly where he wants it on Rome Odunze, and Rome going up and over the guy to get it. Like, that is the most exciting thing I've seen all season.
That was cool and tough. It further justifies the Bears taking him at number 9. I believe there was a comment a little bit earlier in the show, and I'm struggling to find it.
It's from Scott.
Yeah. Did the Bears make the wrong decision not, taking Rome instead of an offensive lineman? No. They made the right decision.
I mean, especially
Rome Odunze would have been the number 1 receiver in any of the last 3 drafts, and probably will be the number 1 receiver for the next 2 drafts if he was in that class. Go get your playmaker. You can find offensive linemen. They'll figure it out. The O-line didn't have a bad day, folks. It really didn't.
And
really didn't.
If you really wanted to argue this, like, say if Joe Alt was there, maybe Joe Alt went at 5.
Right.
JC Latham went at 7. I don't think you do it over JC Latham.
No.
Who was there? Olu Fashanu was there. Fashanu is having a rough rookie year with the Jets right now. Like, I don't know how many people are sitting here watching Olu Fashanu play, but he's struggling. And then you have Talisi Fuaga going at 14. Fuaga's been an awesome run blocker. He has really struggled to pass protect. Like, really struggled, which was predictable on his tape coming out. He had kind of slower feet. Then after that, I mean, you're talking to Marius Mims at 18, another guy who's really struggled with the Bengals. Like, rookie offensive linemen would not have fixed much this year with what was available on the board. Troy Fautanu at 20 has had a rough year, been on and off the field with injuries. Jordan Morgan is an offensive guard for the Packers. Graham Barton is a center for I mean, you're talking 25, 26 now.
Yeah.
These aren't guys you take top 10. So,
Nope.
I think it's clear as day Odunze was the right choice there.
He sure was. They'll figure out the offensive line. They made the right choice. I'm not worried about what they did in the 2024 NFL draft.
Yeah, I do wish there was a center somewhere in there, but that's for another time. Ron, do you have any final thoughts before we close this thing out?
I hate the Packers, Q. That's all it is. I'm sick and tired of this team. Like, if there was any way that I could take one of those big pink erasers that we get in grammar school and just erase the city of Green Bay off the map, just really hard, so much so that there's the piece of like the eraser flying off everywhere, I would, because there's not a team in the world that tortures me as much as the Packers do, outside of the Chicago Bears themselves, probably. I'm very heartbroken today, as I said in my little tagline here. I'm dead inside. I really am. It was a rough day. I am just as upset as every other Bears fan at home. Truly. I agree. I'm excited about a lot of things. Absolutely excited about a lot of things. I like what we saw today. I think that's what makes it a little more heartbreaking, Q. I would rather them get the shit kicked out of them 50-3 rather than have a chance at the end and have it go wrong, of course, on a special teams play, because why wouldn't it? We haven't been tortured enough in the kicking game as Chicago Bears fans. So why not make it worse today? I'm doing okay, Q. I guess it's on to Minnesota. I don't know. I'll channel my inner Bill Belichick here. It's on to Minnesota.
Yeah. So, final thoughts for me. I thought I was apathetic to losing to the Packers. I can't say 2013. That's too early when, the whole Chris Conte, Jordy Nelson stuff. But, I thought I was apathetic to it. 2017, the Mike Glennon game, I thought that was it. I thought that was the last straw. I thought I couldn't be hurt anymore than after that. And then, 2018 rolls around and the Bears are beating the Packers. It's like, yeah, it's great. Okay, 2019. I can't wait to beat the Packers week 1. Again, I thought my level of destruction was at an all-time low in 2019, that week 1, where it was like 9-6 or something. The Bears lost or something just like ludicrous. It was like, okay, a few years of dealing with that. It was just utterly awful. And then, last season, 2023, week 1, Justin Fields, like Bears, maybe they're a playoff team, and they were a 7-win team. If they had better quarterback play, maybe they would have won a few more. Just utterly, last year, week 1, utterly destroyed me. Like if you watched Bears on Tap or listened to Bears on Tap for the first 3 weeks of the season, it was like
I
was
remember
at a funeral. Like it was just
I
I knew at that point that this was going nowhere, and it was just like I have to get through 17 games of this now. Like it was awful, but bounce back this year. I thought I was apathetic to it coming into this game, and they just keep reminding me that I'm not, over and over and over, because
and over again.
When Caleb Williams got that first down, I found myself wanting to scream at my TV, rip their fucking heads off. Like, I was just like enraged that the Green Bay Packers choose to exist and are willing to exist in the same universe as I am, because I just can't stand them anymore. And it just, again, it crushed me. But that's why we do this, right? That's why we're fans. And when the Bears finally get over this hill, it'll feel that much better, because we went through all this bullshit on the way down.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
All right, well, Ron, let's get out of here the only way we know how.
As always, Q, bear down, baby.
Bear down.